is the Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. I'm down in Louisiana and it's already starting to rain as Hurricane Laura bears down on the coast here. I'm going to be here reporting on the hurricane and the aftermath for as long as I can. But I just wanted to talk about something that's really been on my mind. As we've seen these riots, this violence going on all around the country in the name of Black Lives Matter and decrying police brutality, saying that police are hunting black men across the country, and this sort of disconnect between okay, if you think that there's a problem with racism in the country, what good does it do for that cause to go and basically create more racists by having large groups of angry black young men burning down cities like we saw in Kenosha, Wisconsin last night. And to be fair, not all black men, and when I was in Portland and Seattle, not even 1 or 2% black men, but in the name of Black Lives Matter, it has raised the tension level in this country to the point where I even feel it in the airport. Like there was a guy in the airport in Dallas yesterday who just decided he could smoke a cigarette, black guy, and the gate agent told him to put it out, and he just went off. He just lost it. And I mean, so typically, number one, you can't smoke in the airport. Number two, if you didn't know that and somebody said, hey man, you can't smoke here, you'd go, oh, my bad, I'll go, where can I smoke? But he just lost it, and it turned out then he had to get tased and arrested and everything. It was just really not a good situation. But watching the videos of these shootings, I'm here in Lafayette, Louisiana, and just about 4 days ago there was a black man who was shot by cops and killed at a gas station because he was carrying a big old knife and threatening people and was trying to get into the gas station where there were a lot of innocent people. And they tried to tase him, it didn't work, and he just ignored their commands. And so before he was able to gain entrance to the gas station where he could have done a lot of harm to a lot of people, they shot him and killed him. Now, for their part, the family of this guy is calling for calm. They're saying, look, we don't want this thing politicized, and good for them. I mean, it's a tragedy that he was killed. Maybe he was mentally ill. I don't know if he was on drugs or what. He was a known criminal, but you know, whatever, be that as it may, we don't know all of the details. Bottom line is, he had a whole bunch of cops giving him lawful orders, and he refused to comply, and it was a threat to the life and limb of a whole lot of people around him, and so they ended that threat by killing him. The issue up in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where they were, we don't know exactly what the beginning of this situation was. Most people have only seen the video of the end of the situation, where this black man, again, known felon, had been known for being violent against cops in the past, had multiple violations, weapons violations and things like that, and abuse violations and all sorts of arrests. It was not a nice guy. It was not a good guy. And he was fighting with the cops. We know that much. He had a weapon. We know that much. And they were telling him to drop it, to, you know, get on the ground. He ignored them. He apparently told them he was going to his car to get a gun. And he, in fact, walked to his car, opened the door, and reached under the seat. At that point, they shot him and ended the threat. And here's the thing that I've got a problem with. In almost every case, from George Floyd to Rayshard Brooks in Atlanta, going back to Michael Brown in Ferguson, and these more recent cases. In every case, everyone, the person who was killed, who was shot, was, all of these guys had something in common. And it wasn't that they were black. I mean, they did have that in common, but there was something else they had in common besides being black. And that is that they were known criminals and had violent histories and were in the act of disobeying lawful orders from the police. Now look, guys, it's very simple. This doesn't have to do with race. This has nothing to do with racism. It has nothing to do with the fact that these guys were black. If you believe that, then you're accepting a victim mentality, and you are the one who will suffer for accepting that victim mentality. This had nothing to do with race. In every case, they were ignoring or disobeying lawful orders from the police. They were resisting arrest. They were attacking the police officers in many cases. And for that reason, they got shot. Well, look, if you attack a cop, you deserve to get shot. There is no situation, none, zero, where you get to tell a cop, screw you, I'm not going to do what you're telling me to do. There's no situation where you get to do that. I don't get to do that. You don't get to do that. I don't care if you're Asian, Mexican, it doesn't matter. You do not get to ignore or disobey a police officer. He is the law. And that's not just a legal issue, that is a moral issue. The Bible is very clear in Romans 13 that police are God's agent of wrath against the evildoer. And God's agent of wrath against the evildoer means that they get to wield the sword. They get to do violence to stop evil from taking place. And if they believe you're doing evil, even if you're not, they have the right to stop you, to detain you, to arrest you, and then you're going to have to work it out in a court of law. That has happened to me before. I've been arrested unjustly, and I had to work it out in a court of law. And it doesn't have to do with race. It has to do with your choices. It has to do with your actions. And again, if you believe that the only reason these guys are attacking, are killing these guys, that these cops are shooting people, is because they're black, well, you missed the point. You're missing the whole point. Their skin color has nothing to do with it. Nothing. It only has to do, because guarantee you, there are millions of black people in this country who are not being shot by the police. Find me an instance where a black person was shot by a police officer where they were not actively engaged in breaking the law, and the police officer was not then charged with a crime. So you're going to have to show me two things. A cop that was not charged with a crime after shooting somebody, and that somebody was not actively breaking the law when he was shot. Show me those two things, and you're going to have to show me a whole bunch of them to convince me that there's an epidemic of violence against black people by cops in the United States. If you cannot find those, then you're wrong. That's all there is to it. All right, so look, guys, the thing that bugs me the most about these riots that keep happening, the looting, the burning of cars and houses and stuff, is that not only are these not justified because the events that sparked them, for lack of a better term, were not racially motivated killings by the police of black people. They weren't. These black people that were shot because they were attacking the police, not because they were black. And I will stand by that statement no matter what comes. But that's not even the bigger issue. The bigger issue is that even if the police were killing black people or white people or Mexican people or Chinese people, even if the police were systemically racist, that does not give anybody the right to go out and burn down somebody's business. That person, that furniture store that was burned in Kenosha last night, what did that have to do with the police? Zero. The owners of that furniture store they had run that store in Kenosha, I'm told, for generations. They had nothing to do with the police. They were just handy. They were just there. There was a building there that got burned.
Oh my God. Nobody deserves this. This accomplishes nothing. Okay, this is not justice that they're looking for. This is destroying things.
Even if these were unjustified killings by the police, nobody has the right to steal someone else's livelihood, because that's a form of murder. If I worked 30 years on my business and you come burn it down in a night, you just stole 30 years of my life. And so even if there is a problem with systemic racism in the United States, I mean, that's something about which people can disagree. But I don't see how anybody can make a moral case that it's okay to destroy people's livelihoods and potentially hurt and kill people who were not involved in the original incident. You just can't. You can't make that claim. And I heard people last night as I was watching these riots live, I heard people trying to make the claim, because there were guys that were protecting some of the businesses with weapons, and guess what? Those businesses didn't get burned. And people were yelling and screaming at these guys that were out there standing there with their weapons, holding off the looters, and they're saying, it's just a building. It doesn't matter. It's just stuff. Well, I would say it's just stuff. It's just a building. Those couches in that furniture store were not systemically racist. The building was not systemically racist, but they did represent the hard work of Americans who are just trying to put food on their tables. And that's the real travesty here. Well, I think if you want to lay blame at somebody's feet, you've got to lay blame at the feet of the politicians who are encouraging this by their non-action, and even tacitly directly encouraging it by standing up in front of these protesters and saying, I'm with you, Ted Wheeler. We have to hold those people accountable. That is the solution to this. Because I'm here in Lafayette, Louisiana. 4 days ago, like I said, there was a man that was shot and killed here. And I just came from interviewing the mayor of Lafayette. And I asked him, why haven't there been massive riots here? And he said, because I stand behind my cops, and I'm empowering my police to put a stop to that when it gets started. And people tried. People here in Lafayette tried to riot, but the cops came down on them like a ton of bricks. And they did so because they knew that the city leadership and the police chief and their leaders had their backs. That's called unity of command. And I learned in the military that without unity of command, you lose. A house divided against itself cannot stand. It's time for us to vote out the politicians who are behind this violence, because they are directly and indirectly encouraging it. That's all I have to say about that.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.